Hey everyone, this is Jason Romano from Sports Spectrum. Today's interview with Anthony Sherman of the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs was recorded before the coronavirus outbreak. And obviously, the NFL hasn't been as affected because they're out of season right now as the NBA, NHL, college basketball, and other sports, softball, lacrosse, all the spring sports that have been affected, golf, all of those sports that have been affected. Obviously, the NFL is a little different. But we want to put a little disclaimer up front that as you listen to this interview with Anthony Sherman, know that it was pre-recorded before the coronavirus outbreak. So obviously we don't discuss that. But it's a pretty great interview. Anthony's a lot of fun, and he takes us really sort of inside the world of winning a Super Bowl and the aftermath of that and trusting God throughout all of it. We're praying for you, especially those who are affected by the coronavirus. We love you all and continue to believe that God is in control and has a hand on all of this. He's got it. We believe that. We trust in Him and Him alone. Take a listen to our conversation here with Anthony Sherman on Sports Spectrum.
Welcome to Sports Spectrum, the sports and faith podcast that brings Jesus back into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
Hey everyone, welcome to Sports Spectrum. I'm Jason Romano. So glad that you're tuning into the podcast today. I am excited because today we're talking to Anthony Sherman. He is a Super Bowl champion fullback with the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Chiefs, of course, beating the 49ers 31-20 in Super Bowl 54, and they are your Super Bowl champions. And Anthony Sherman is a champion, and it's not just because he is a Super Bowl champion, but Anthony Sherman is doing great work for Jesus. And recently, he went on a trip with Compassion International. And of course, Compassion has sponsored and partnered with Sports Spectrum for a couple years now. And later on in the show, Anthony is going to tell you why Compassion International is exactly what we've been telling you over these past couple years, the most trusted child development ministry in the world, working through the local church to release children from poverty. I want to give you their website now so you get a chance to check out all that Compassion International is doing. It's simply compassion.com/sports spectrum. Compassion.com/sports spectrum. Go take a look when you get a moment, maybe pause the podcast and look at the children who are waiting to be released from poverty. Pray about it. Consider sponsoring a child. Man, it will make such a difference in these kids' lives. $38 a month, the best $38 you'll spend every single month. Compassion.com/sports spectrum. Consider sponsoring a child today. And of course, Anthony Sherman, winning that Super Bowl, joins us here today on the show. We're going to talk about that Super Bowl experience, the aftermath of winning a Super Bowl, what the parade was like, what it was like to have that platform to be called a Super Bowl champion, and then the trip that he made after the Super Bowl with Compassion International. What an amazing trip and what an important mission that Anthony Sherman is on, spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ through the lens of football. Take a listen to Anthony Sherman. He's joining us right now, right here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. Anthony Sherman, welcome back to Sports Spectrum.
Thanks for having me on.
It's good to see you, man. It's so cool to have this discussion in person, and it's nice to say that you're now a Super Bowl champion, which we didn't have that wording, I guess, the last time we talked. How's that feeling?
It feels great. I mean, it's a lot nicer to talk to you here instead of opening night of media when you could barely hear questions.
Oh my gosh, that was crazy.
No, I mean, it's a great feeling. It's a great blessing to be a Super Bowl champ and to be able to use my platform to spread His word is really why I wanted to come on and talk to you guys.
Yeah, what was that? What was that week like for you? I mean, you said, interestingly enough, Super Bowl media night, you were asked a lot more questions about your faith in Christ, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I was surprised. I figured that I had to do a couple of faith-based questions, with obviously you guys being down there. But there was a Christian television channel which I didn't even know about. They kind of asked me a couple questions, but it was awesome to have that many faith-based media outlets down there able to have the access to guys that want to share share their word and to tell the people about his power and his grace.
It's cool. And you got to play in a game that everybody dreams about playing, and then you get to win it in an incredible fashion. Describe now, it's only been, a few weeks or so here as we are talking, and you have that ring. Well, you don't actually have the ring yet. We'll get to that in a minute. But you have the title, the ring's coming. What was that experience like? Describe it from what every person and player in the NFL would play for, right? If the next level is, okay, the platform and all these other things or money or whatever, but most every single person that you talk to in the NFL says, I'm playing to help our team get a Super Bowl. You did that. So describe that experience.
I mean, I don't even know if I still can. I mean, it is such a crazy whirlwind to, win the AFC Championship game, knowing that you have one more game until your dream, as however long you've played football. I started when I was 7. To play in the Super Bowl and possibly win a Super Bowl. Now that we have won the Super Bowl, I still are on cloud 9, just thinking about, 6 minutes to go in the game, we're down. And we find a way to keep fighting, to keep playing, and for us to come out on top and have the confetti there and my wife and kids on the field after, it's emotional. I mean, you don't realize, how emotional it will be until that moment when the confetti comes down and you're a Super Bowl world champ. I mean, you are the best team in the world at that given moment. And to be able to do it with the group of guys we have and have my family. I have my 80-year-old grandfather that flew for the first time just to come to the game.
Wow.
It's an awesome feeling to have a family and friends, and then to do it for Kansas City, 50 years, and those fans are unbelievable. Yeah. And to be able to do that and have a parade there, it was a great experience.
All right, so I want to get to the parade in a second, but I want to ask you about the game itself because there's so much hoopla surrounding it. I mean, we were down there in Miami, and you saw the craziness, Super Bowl media night and all the craziness around it, but yet you still had to just play a football game. Once the kickoff happened, are you able to fall back into the mode of, okay, this is actually a regular game? Like it means a lot more, but it's a football game. Are you able to do that, or is there still always that sort of overarching sense that it's the Super Bowl?
No, up until kickoff, yes. I mean, you come out on the field and there's 70,000 people with cameras and the sidelines are packed and there's people everywhere, and you run out in the field and it's, this is the Super Bowl. Yeah. As soon as that ball's kicked off, you receive or you run it down the field on kickoff, it's a game. It's the same game you started when you were 7 years old. It's just got a lot more stake to it. And our coaches did a great job all week of, letting our personalities show, but also, one day at a time. Okay, first night, media night. Crazy. Yeah. I didn't realize how crazy it was until you're in it. Yep. And you're talking to you, I'm talking to you, and then as soon as we're done, another camera crew's pulling you over to do this, and you're like, okay, well, wait, who are we talking to?
It was immediately after too. It's like, thanks for joining us. You're no problem. Okay, next.
Yeah, and it was like that all night. And but for the most part, once Wednesday hit, it was a normal week for us, and we got to be able to kind of get back into the game plan again because we installed most of it in Kansas City the week before. Yeah. To be able to just get out there and to be in nice weather coming from Kansas City. I think when we left, it was like 30 degrees, kind of a rain, snow type of thing, and then we get to Florida.
It was nice in Miami.
Yeah, it was nice all week.
Yes, it was.
It was nice. It was fun. There's something, there's pictures and memories I'll have for a lifetime.
That's cool. Now, when that game is over, so this is going to lead up to the parade, but the game ends. You describe that moment, having your wife, having your kids, your family there. That I'm trying to picture any kind of moment in my life that will be the equivalent of that, where it's just a fog, a daze, and you're just kind of, it's a whirlwind craziness. Maybe like my wedding day, where you're building up so much and then it comes and it happens so fast, and it's like you look back and it's like, what just happened? What was that moment like from the time the final score is up there, the buzzer goes off, you're the champs, and then just the celebration, which really takes about it's probably longer than just on the field. You guys have post-game parties and all that too, right?
Yeah, so I don't think we got back to the hotel. I'm not sure exactly when the game ended, but so I did.
It was probably like 10 o'clock or so.
So I
Eastern.
did the field stuff, family, trophy presentation, and then I'm walking off the field. I take a right to get into the locker room, and PR department from I don't know which team, but a lot of the PR people come and help because it's crazy.
Yeah.
You're going to go do media. So now I walk into this tent that they have outside the locker room for media, and I answer questions at the podium, and then from there you get in the locker room, and some guys are changed, ready to go, and then other guys are still in full
uniform,
helmets on, like just sitting there really taking it all in. So I think we got back to the hotel around 12:30. And then we had the after party, and to be able to be there, I had 4 uncles in town that they could come over. My mom,
cool.
My oldest son tried to stay up for a little while. He crashed pretty hard. Yeah. Just to be able to be there with friends and family. And then we come back, you try to sleep as much as you can, but you're still on a high and excited. You get a couple hours of sleep Monday, you fly back to Kansas City, and then you're there in Kansas City with the fans, and I don't think it really sunk in that you were a Super Bowl champ until we're driving home from the airport, and at every overpass there was probably 40 to 50, maybe to 100 people on the overpass. It's like excited just to see the bus go by.
Wow. Of
the team, and we've driven that route however many years, however many times there's an away game.
Yeah.
Not a person, but as soon as you win the Super Bowl and you've done something that city has been waiting for 50 years, there's a different feel to it. Even when, I went to my kids' colonial preschool to pick them up on Tuesday. No, sorry. This was Thursday. They had a big celebration for me. I walked in. The kids were out. All the young kids were out there cheering, yelling, took pictures. And
Did you know this was coming?
No, they did a little one after the AFC Championship game. Yeah. We were all excited about the Super Bowl, but at that point it was like, hey, good luck in the Super Bowl. Like, we're really pulling for you guys. We really want you to win. And then to be able to actually have that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's an experience that is something that I'll always remember, and I really, pray and hope that we'll do that again next year. And
that would be cool.
I know the guys that want to, and the guys in the team that we're going to be doing everything we can to have that experience again.
All right, the parade. Describe the parade. We asked the Eagles players a couple years ago, different guys, the Patriots players last year. This year, the Chiefs win it all, and you get your parade. It's 50 years. What was that experience like?
It was crazy.
Is that also chaos?
It's chaos. There was I want to say if there was reports of like 1 million people in Kansas City along the parade route, and you see grown men crying because they're so happy.
Yeah.
It's hard not to be choked up to see the excitement and the happiness in the people of Kansas City, and to go through the streets and everyone's yelling, screaming, and just so excited to just catch a glimpse. And I had people text me like, hey, look for me, we'll be wearing red as a joke. And it was actually my church pastor at Life Church in Overland Park.
Yeah.
And it was weird. I'm telling you, it was the weirdest thing. We're driving the route, and I'm looking off the back of the bus, and there's people, and I end up locking eyes with him.
You found him.
I've no idea where he was. He's about 5 rows deep, and he's not the tallest guy, and he stands out. Like it was a sign from God, like, hey, this is a guy you need to see and show your appreciation for.
Wow.
And I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. I was like, oh my God. I was like, Jess, look, it's Danny. And I could not believe that out of him, he's the one person that I could say I saw at the parade.
Jeez. Where's Waldo, right? Holy cow.
I had no idea. It wasn't like I knew a street where he was going to be looking, so I started to look. It was just that I caught eyes with him, and he was right there with his family and his kids. So it was and then we got to Union Station and walked on the stage, and it's just people everywhere there. There's 3 or 4 people in a tree across the stage from us.
It's a madhouse.
It's a madhouse, and it was exciting. And I don't know, we had a police escort in and out of the city, but I don't know how many people just stayed in the city that night at hotels and stuff, because it was a madhouse for a long time.
That's cool. That's amazing. Super Bowl champion Anthony Sherman is joining us here on Sports Spectrum. North Attleboro, right? North Attleboro, Massachusetts.
Correct.
He's the native son. So let's talk about, like, going back a little bit, church, faith, your testimony a little bit growing up. When we saw each other at Super Bowl Media Night, obviously we had like 3 minutes to ask you questions. We don't have time to flesh out into, your full testimony. Let's learn about that. And then eventually what I want to do is take it to what took place after the Super Bowl and the trip that you made before you and I are able to talk. But let's go back a little bit and talk about where, and I know your faith kind of took shape a little older, but where faith and life was for you as a kid in Massachusetts.
Yeah, so, growing up in Massachusetts, it's hard not to be a New England fan. And growing up 15 minutes down the road, it's, obviously that's what I was as a kid, as a New England Patriots fan. And being able to play them for so long and so many years and just watching them be so great for so long, it was great to be able to, have my sisters, and I have 4 younger sisters, and be able to have them to be, just a little bit to say to all the New England fans for so however many years they've been saying they're Super Bowl champs. It was great. But
that's cool.
I grew up Catholic.
Yeah.
My wife and I like to joke, and people in the East Coast Catholic. You go to church every once in a while, and
I was a product of that.
Yeah, you don't necessarily, I would say the basis of the religion, and you don't really understand, and it's more or less a relationship. And I've learned this, since I've been older. It's a relationship with Jesus Christ more than rules and what you need to do, a checklist kind of thing. So it started like that, and then my wife was really someone that dove into this walk a lot sooner than I did. In Arizona, we found a great church, and we attended, and I was more just attending because she wanted me to. And there's a reason for everything. So I think he just was like, all right, well, I'll get to you. Just keep coming, and we'll watch me work. And, I went for 2 years there, and then I got traded to Kansas City, and I had a team pastor and my wife both really pushing me to come to Bible study. And for me, not really knowing the Bible, not really understanding anything about it, growing up Catholic, not having the best knowledge of any situation, I was like, all right, I guess I'll go. And you talk to the pastor now, and I kind of sat there with like a mean look on my face, like, I don't really want to be here. Don't ask me any questions. And just slowly just kept like, oh, wow, okay. That makes sense. And slowly, and then come to the PAO. I want to say 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago now, and it was all over.
That was it.
It was all over. It wrecked me, and it was one of those things where, yep, I see what you did back in Arizona, and now I'm yours. And, after the PAO, I went home, got baptized, and it's just been a crazy whirlwind experience after this. And, I just started serving at my church last year on the parking team. Yep.
So you're one of the greeters out there?
A greeter, or I pick you up in a golf cart and bring you over to Life Church doors.
That's pretty cool to be picked up by a member of the Chiefs. Now, are you? That makes me think though. Let me ask you this: are you able to be a normal partaker at church, knowing that you're a player and that there's sort of this? I don't like the word celebrity, but obviously you face it and you know what that means. Are you able to still go to church and just kind of enjoy it and be normal? I guess.
Yeah.
Based upon the people that are there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't get bothered, but it's also my platform.
Right, you don't mind it either.
I don't mind it because I use it as I'm here, and if I can get more people to hear his word and to come through these doors because I go here, well, I'll sign autograph, I'll do whatever.
All day long, right?
It's one of those things where even last week I had a lady come up to me, a young girl come up to me and said, I wanted my boyfriend to come to church, and he didn't really want to come, and then I told him you came here, and now he comes every week. So it's one of those things where I'm not saying that but if I have to do that in order to get more people in the door, I'm okay with signing autographs, taking pictures, doing whatever to help. And I try to use that platform as best as I can to really spread his word and his love.
That's cool, man. I love that. Anthony Sherman's our guest here on Sports Spectrum. Let me ask you about the trip. So there's one thing to be to believe in God. There's another one to be a follower of Christ. It sounds like you had those, sort of moments where you took that step from believing and knowing and hearing about God to following Jesus to being obedient, which was the next step I wanted to go to in going out and making disciples. And so there's this trip, and I think you actually told us about this trip at the Super Bowl when we saw you, that you were going to make after the Super Bowl, win or lose.
Yep.
And then you were also making a trip to San Diego, because that's where we are right now. Tell us about that trip, your involvement. It was with Compassion International, who is a sponsor of this podcast, and we'll talk about Compassion in a second, but why you were so moved to go, because that's a big step. We've heard that a lot here where we are this week. That's a big step to actually say yes to go.
Well, yeah, I've gotten a great, again, my wife is a saint, because Mallory Brown, she reached out and said, hey, there's a pre-conference mission trip with Compassion that I'm going to be going on, and I think that you guys would be great for it. We had heard about Compassion and knew the great work that they do for kids in poverty. Yeah. And I've always been someone that the kids really, sick kids, it really tears me up. Yeah. And last year we had talked about maybe sponsoring a kid. We just never ended up getting around to it, or whatever it ended up taking place. Well, Jess signed us up without me knowing and said, hey, you're going to come on this thing. And I kind of fought it for a little bit. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm like, it's so close to the Super Bowl. If we make it there, and then, the Super Bowl comes, we win. And now I'm like, okay, well, we're in. And I'm telling you, Satan had some warfare on the trip down. We got a delayed flight, a medical emergency, or possible misconnection, but the Compassion staff did a great job of getting us to where we needed to be, and it has been life-changing. So I want to say it was about a week after the parade. Okay. We got on a flight on Thursday to Nicaragua. Wow. And just to see the joy on the kids' faces, but then to go and see where they lived and some of how they grow up, there is no other greater power than the Lord. I mean, all they have is the Lord, and all their sight and vision is on the Lord. And to see that, and then thinking about the things that I complain about on a daily basis, it's just like, you got to cut it out. What are you doing? And that trip has changed my whole life. And then we get on a flight from Nicaragua on Sunday afternoon with a couple of the Compassion crew and end up coming to San Diego for the PAO. And it has been the best decision I've made, to the point where I'm now going to go on another one at the end of June. Wow. Yeah. That impactful. Yeah. I mean, it is, if you're just, not everyone can go on the trips, but to hear the testimony of these kids, and to hear that a sponsor has changed their life, and it's just from a letter, couple letters, a letter once a month, whatever it is. These kids know first and last name of their sponsor and where they're from. If the impact that we can make just by sponsoring a child is life-changing to these kids. Even we heard one this morning at the breakfast that he grew up with no shoes. He grew up with nothing. Grew up in a house of 10 by 10 by 10, and they all joked that they had a square foot to live in. It was 10 brothers and sisters in a 10 by 10. Wow. And to see him today, it is unbelievable. He sponsor, retired military. He ends up going into the military in America to take his spot. And he thanks the Lord every day for just having those sponsors in his life to get him out of poverty. And we went down, and I'm the type of guy that is, again, like I said, these kids have a soft spot for me. So sure. I'm walking around going, is he sponsored? Is he sponsored? And we ended up coming out with two children we met sponsored, and another one were on the wait list. So when they're old enough, they can be sponsored. But how cool is that? It's a life-changing experience that I've been on, and I am so grateful and honored to have taken part, and to be able to have my platform to share with other people is really what I'm looking forward to.
That's amazing. And one of the things that we talk about whenever I mention compassion and as a sponsor, and the people who are regular listeners to Sports Spectrum know, especially in our podcast, that I talk about compassion a lot. And it's words, right? I've never been on a trip. I hope to make one soon. We do sponsor a child, but I've never met this child. It's another thing to actually go and experience it. The words that I usually say when I'm reading a sponsorship or whatever from Compassion is they are the most trusted child development ministry in the world. But I say that. You can actually attest to that. You've seen that when you go and you see how trusted they are, how wonderful they are as an organization, and all they care about is releasing kids from poverty, right?
And that's all they care about. I mean, they're
doing it in Jesus' name, by the way.
That's what's amazing. And they've got these churches down there that are wherever they're at, and these kids come and these families come, and they don't have anything, but they love the Lord, and the Lord gets them through and provides for them what they don't have, and meaning fulfillment of the Lord in their heart. And it's crazy. We're in Nicaragua, and the western portion of the country is more, I wouldn't even say, more civilization to the western or the eastern part, but there's a guy named Frank down in Nicaragua. He is determined to reach every kid in that country that needs Jesus and compassion. And after being down there, I am 100% a believer that he is going to reach every kid. That whole department. And that's just where we went. And I know, I want to say, I think there's 25 other locations that they travel to on a basis, but I believe they have other areas. But I mean, I can tell off of this one that they don't just take this as a job. They love what they do, and they serve the children, and that's their whole thing. They don't, everyone's God's child, and they serve the kids that need it the most. They love every minute of it, and it's a beautiful thing to see. One step at a time, these kids coming out of poverty and making a life for themselves after being in these programs.
That's awesome. The website, compassion.com/sportspectrum. You hear us mention it a lot. Now you can see the impact it's really making on children's lives. $38 a month, tax deductible, and an opportunity for you to sponsor a child in Jesus' name. Check out compassion.com/sportspectrum and consider sponsoring a child today. Anthony Sherman, this has been great. Let's close with this. As we look back, could be last year, could be the last 9 years that you've been playing now in the NFL. What's the great lesson the Lord has shown you? What's the great lesson He's taught you as you look back on this journey that you've been on maybe the last 9-10 years?
Without Him, none of this is possible. And, I've talked to a couple people, and, it's one of those things where, God has given you this opportunity to play in this league. All the glory goes to Him, because this league is tough. This life is tough. But I've learned that the further I lean into Him, the easier things have become for me and my family. And I just want to be able to be someone that my kids can look up to, a man of faith, and show them the way they need to be as faith believers and walk with Jesus, because since I've been a believer, He has opened up doors that I've never thought were possible. Pro Bowl, Super Bowl champ. I started I wouldn't say necessarily non-believer, but not as strong as I am today. And for all that, He gets all the glory.
That's awesome. He is Anthony Sherman. He is a Super Bowl champion. He's also a Pro Bowler, and he's a great dude. We're so glad that you joined us here on the show. Thanks so much for joining us, and continued success, my friend.
Thanks for having me on.
And many thanks to Anthony Sherman, fullback, Kansas City Chiefs, Pro Bowler in 2018, Super Bowl champion in 2019, and he joined us here on Sports Spectrum. Really great stuff from Anthony, and I just appreciate his heart, not only for winning a Super Bowl and spreading the gospel. I love that he volunteers in his church. I think that's really cool, especially as a greeter. Imagine seeing Anthony Sherman, a big old fullback, greeting you at your church service on a Sunday morning in Kansas City. That's pretty awesome. And then his heart for Compassion International. which we talked about multiple times here on this podcast. We love them, and we just love what they stand for, and sponsoring children and releasing children from poverty. From poverty. No child deserves to be stuck in poverty, and you and I and Anthony Sherman are making a difference by sponsoring children, by pouring in our resources, our platform, our influence to help release those children from poverty. Let me just mention the website one more time, compassion.com/sportspectrum, compassion.com/sportspectrum, and really do pray about sponsoring a child. It could literally change a child's life. Sponsor them today by going to compassion.com/sportspectrum, and I promise you won't regret it. We do appreciate you for listening. Check out our social media pages, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Also our YouTube channel, and of course our website. The home base for all of our content at Sports Spectrum can be found at our website, sportspectrum.com. Check it out, sportspectrum.com. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time right here on Sports Spectrum. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.